Alright, what's up YouTube? Today we're back here with another video on the Genesis Coupe. Today we're gonna actually go over the price sheet on how much I spent on my build, okay? First off, we're gonna go over with the bottom end build, so the bottom part of the block. First things first, I did reuse the OEM crankshaft. There's no aftermarket crankshaft for the car. There is a stroker kit, but we highly recommend not using the stroker kit because that stroker kit isn't consistent with what it's advertised as. So internals, they consist of the OEM crankshaft, K1 rods, Waseco oversized pistons. I got the 86.5 millimeter ones, ACO main and rod bearings, and then those are gonna be extra oil clearance bearings. After that, we have the OEM thrust washers, ARP main bolts, the OEM front and rear main seal. So we have those two as well. And then I'm also gonna include this in the video because I'll explain why right now, but assembly lube, liquid gasket sealant, and the OEM head gasket. The reason why I included that for the engine build, for the bottom end, is because GenCoupeStore.com, they sell a engine rebuild kit, and it's called I believe the silver kit, and the silver kit consists of all of that for $1,500. See, you literally get everything I just said for $1,500 on GenCoupe Store. And that's just for building the bottom end, okay? So now that we have the bottom end established, let's go ahead and move on to the heads now. So this is what I have for the heads, okay? So I have the GSE S2 cams. Those are about $660, okay? Those are really expensive cams. And also take in mind, whenever you're doing cams, you have to shave off a little bit of the head to make those cams fit. In my build videos, you'll see what I'm talking about, but I just want to give you guys a quick reminder that that's what you're gonna have to do if you're doing aftermarket cams, okay? Up next, BC oversized intake valves and BC oversized exhaust valves, GSE beehive valve springs and retainers, OEM valve seals, stock cam phasers. Of course, you're gonna need your timing chain kit. You're gonna need the bucket lifters, especially because you're changing the valve clearance. I'm gonna include the fluid amper in the internal section because the fluid amper helps the rotating assembly system, and the ARP cam tower studs, okay? That's very important too. So pricing this all together for the internal stuff, you would be looking to pay about $3,850, okay? So let's go ahead and get into the machine work now, and we'll go ahead and start pricing that stuff out. All right guys, so next up in our section is the engine machine work. If you're going oversized pistons, you have to get the cylinder walls bored out, okay? Because I went with 86.5 millimeters and the stock piston is 86 millimeters. You have to bore up the cylinder walls to fit an 86.5 millimeter piston, so don't forget that. So engine bore, a line hone. A line hone is very, very, very important. A lot of people miss it. They don't understand what it is. And the line hone is needed whenever you do ARP main stud fasteners. If you get aftermarket fasteners, you have to get in a line hone. So I just want to make it clear to you guys, if you don't do an align hone, you could potentially run into oil clearance problems, okay? So just a quick FYI. Balance the rotating assembly. You guys have to balance the rotating assembly, because if it's not all balanced, then you're just putting more force on one side of the engine, on the rotating assembly, than the other, and that's not what you want. That's more wear and tear for your bearings. Decking the block, micro polish the crank, jet wash, ported heads, machine work to make the cams fit the head, and of course the head assembly. You guys know I didn't assemble my heads because I don't have the tool for it, so that's all the stuff the machine shop did. So now let's move on to our fuel setup. So when it comes to my fuel, I haven't done a video for you guys yet, but I will eventually. But this is pretty much everything that I have in my fuel system, okay? So I have a Walbro 450 pump, Bosch 2200cc injectors, a PTFE fuel line with 6 AN fittings. Everything is 6 AN, 20 feet of PTFE braided fuel line, E85 6 AN fuel filter screen. I'll show you guys that one day in a video, but for the meantime, I'll pop up probably a picture and show you guys what it looks like. 6 AN bulkhead fittings. I needed those for the fuel return system. Fuel feed, 6 AN adapter, a 6 AN fuel rail fitting for the exit, and then a fuel pressure regulator. That's what I have for my fuel system. It's not big or anything. It's just a basic fuel return setup, good to support 700 to 800 horsepower for my build, okay? So that's fuel. Let's go ahead and move on to our turbo setup. All right, so now we're on to what I have for the turbo setup. And right off the back, I want you guys to know that I'm using a Garrett 6465. It's got a V-band on it, it's a 3-inch V-band, and the housing is a 81AR, okay? A tile 44mm wastegate, CPE turbo manifold, of course a custom turbo downpipe, or O2 housing, whatever you guys want to call it. 30-inch oil feed line, 10AN braided hoses with fittings, a 50mm tile blow-off valve, aluminum intercooler tubing. My intercooler core is a Rev 9 spec. I forget what spec. I don't know what spec it was because it's discontinued, but it was spec something. My core is rated for 900 horsepower, but I went through the effort of looking for the next best one for you guys. And the next best one that you guys can buy that's just the core is the Rev 9 Spec R intercooler. That one is rated for 800 horsepower, which is still pretty good, and it's only $240, okay? But that's pretty much it for my turbo setup, actually. All right, so before we move forward, I do want to mention real quick that my turbo manifold, the CPE turbo manifold, is discontinued. It retailed for $800 before. I got mine used for $300. And I know a lot of you guys are gonna look for alternative options. I highly recommend not going with MXP because MXP is known for cracking a lot. And then the CX Racing turbo manifold, I also don't recommend it because that one also tends to have a lot of stress cracks as well because of where the welds are at. So I know a lot of you guys will be asking, well, what manifold I should go with, or where's a reliable manifold. Well, you guys are in luck because as of yesterday, my good friend Tim Herbert from Coupe store, he's actually releasing a top mount turbo manifold for the 2.0 guys. So it's really exciting to see. It's gonna be made out of cast something, so it's gonna be a strong manifold. So you don't have to worry about it cracking or anything like that. You can either go with that route with his turbo manifold, which is gonna be, I believe, around $400 to $500, or you can still go with a custom, make your own turbo manifold, which a lot of guys tend to do. But for the ones that don't want to build a manifold and spend $1,000 on it, Coupe store is releasing their turbo manifold within the next couple of weeks. So just keep a lookout on their website for that turbo manifold if you want a top mount setup. All right, guys, so the next thing we're going to talk about is like the miscellaneous kind of things. To start off, let's talk about our gauges. So for my gauges, I have an oil pressure gauge, boost gauge, and a wideband gauge, of course. Very important to get an oil pressure gauge. You gotta know how much pressure is going through your system at all times, because if you have pressure drop, you know something's wrong. Boost gauge, very important. I'm pretty sure you guys know why you need a boost gauge. Your wideband gauge, again, very important. You need a wideband to measure your AFRs. Without a wideband, you really can't fine tune your car, okay? One more thing I recommend getting for gauge wise is the oil temperature gauge. If you run the engine too hot, then your oil starts to break down, which is bad, okay? Just bad overall for the engine. So that's why it's important to get an oil temperature gauge as well. Up next, we have the Comp Stage 4 clutch kit. Stage 4 because it holds up to 600 torque, 700 torque, somewhere around there. A Mac 3-port boost solenoid, a 5-bar map sensor, catch cams, of course, heat wrap for the turbo manifold, vacuum hoses, of course, turbo blanket, again, to keep down engine bay temps, NGK spark plugs. So I'll be going over spark plugs in a separate video, but just to give you guys a little short summary, I'm running NGK 2669 spark plugs. They're 2-step quarter plugs and they're gap to 0.017. And last but not least, a ported intake manifold. The reason why you had to port your intake manifold for BK1 and BK2, you guys, I highly recommend getting the BK1 intake manifold. The reason why you have to port it is because the runners do not have, they don't flow the same, okay? They all flow differently. Specifically runners 2 and 3. The way how you fix the flow is by porting them out. If you don't port them out, then you're gonna risk running into a lean condition because of the uneven airflow going into the cylinders. So again, very important to port your intake manifold. If you're BK2, you have the plastic one, you can't port it, you have to get a BK1. What else is there? I don't think I said it, but oil sandwich plate. And you also need an oil sandwich plate. That's what I use for my oil feed line, and that's also what I use for my sensors. And if you ever want to put on an oil cooler kit, then that's what you would use. I actually forgot one more thing, and that is the most important thing. That is my Haltech, my standalone ECU. Haltech has a Platinum Pro version. It's a plug and play, or PNP is what we like to call it. They sell that for the Genesis Coupe 2.0s. It's $1,500 retail. That's what I have right now. However, AlphaSpeed does offer another ECU option now, which is the Link ECU. They offer Link ECU with a harness for it. So a lot of people are starting to transition over to using that Link ECU because it has other features like rolling anti-lag, compatible with auto cars. So again, a lot of Haltech users, they're now switching over to Link ECUs, which is what I plan on doing hopefully next year. I'm gonna go ahead and go over a quick story with you guys real quick because I need you guys to understand how I got my ECU for so cheap. And it's actually thanks to AlphaSpeed. Long ago, when I was a stock ECU, I had gotten tuned by AlphaSpeed. In the process of getting tuned, my ECU got bricked. It wasn't because of the tuner, it wasn't because of the rep, it was because of the equipment. AlphaSpeed was like, you know what? Because it was on our, on our time and everything, we're gonna go ahead and pay $1,000 towards your ECU, which was like $1,500 for a brand new ECU from Hyundai. Keep in mind, this is a push start Genesis Coupe, okay? So push start Genesis Coupes, you have to get a VIN matched ECU. You can't just slap in the ECU like a key turn one. It's not gonna work. So for a brand new push start ECU from Hyundai, it was $1,500. Well, there was a Haltech for $1,500. So all I did was pay the difference of $500 that they had given me, and we ended up just getting a Haltech. So AlphaSpeed really came in clutch for me. They got me a Haltech ECU for basically $500. That just pretty much goes to show how great AlphaSpeed is with their customer service. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because I know some of you guys are like kind of sketch about AlphaSpeed, but I promise you AlphaSpeed is all about their customers. That pretty much wraps up everything on our build sheet. Let's go ahead and add everything up, and then we'll see how much you guys would spend on your build just like this, and then how much you would spend to pay someone to do it, and how much I spent, okay? After you add everything up, you're looking to spend about $12,950 if you were to do it all by yourself, okay? Now, if you were to pay a shop to do it, you can just add on 3,000 to 4,000. I'm just gonna add on 3,000 and call it 16,000 is what you're more than likely to pay to have a shop to do it for you, okay? So that's how much you guys would pay. It could be less and it could be more, just depends on if you want stronger pistons, stronger rods, different bearings, it depends on all that sort of stuff. But based off of my build, my price sheet, that's ballpark area what you're gonna be spending for this build. For some of you guys that just want 500 horsepower, you can just automatically get rid of all the head stuff and you shave it easily, like anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000, and you're looking to spend like $8,000, and you got a reliable 500 horsepower 2.0T setup. Let's go ahead and talk about how much I spent. I'm gonna start off with the internals real quick for what I paid. So if you guys don't know this engine that I got was already built. It was already fully built. I picked up this engine from a dude named Rob Hardway from Florida. He's a military dude who's active duty, and he's actually overseas. So he ended up breaking the rear end of his Genesis Coupe. If you guys don't know, the rear end is pretty fragile. So the remedy is to do a sedan rear end swap. We'll talk about that another day, another video. But anyways, he didn't have the funds to pretty much to build the rear end like how he wanted to put down the power. So he ended up just parting out his Genesis Coupe, and I just ended up getting really lucky to get his engine for $2,000. His fully built engine with the clutch system and everything, oil sandwich plate, and many more things for $2,000. Moving over to machine work, I really didn't pay anything for machine work. The only machine work I had done was I did an align honed the cylinder walls for the new mating surface for the new ring lens that I brought, and jet wash, and all of that costed me like $300. That's what it ran me in the long run. So I spent $300 in the machine work area. For fuel setup, this is where I need to explain to you guys about my friends from Heavy Foot Performance. Basically, the dude that owns it or runs it, he basically got a lot of my aftermarket parts for a very, very cheap price. How it ended up started was I ended up buying a turbo from him, the 6466, the first turbo I got. And he ended up gaining interest into my build because he's never seen anyone build a Hyundai before. So he took interest upon it, and he ended up helping me out along the way, the whole way to the point where he got me a lot of parts for a great discount. So in the fuel setup area, I ended up spending $380. For my turbo setup, I ended up paying $2,470. And then for the miscellaneous part, I only paid $1,000 instead of $3,500 and the other, I forgot what it was. But yeah, I only spent $1,000 there. I ended up paying $6,150 roughly. That's a rough estimate because there were a few things that I did have to buy that I probably didn't include in here. So if I were to give myself a little bit of extra money, I would say closer to $6,500 or $7,000 is what I actually spent on everything for this Genesis Coupe build. If you're watching this, Heavy Foot Performance, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for this build. Hopefully I can pass on the knowledge that you guys have given me onto many others. And it's not just Heavy Foot Performance either, guys. It's also Travis from MT Motorsports, Dustin Davis from 3.8 Performance, Tim Herbert from Gen Coupe. But majority of the credit's gonna go to Heavy Foot Performance. That's pretty much it for this build sheet. I mean, I went down through detail and everything with you guys. I really hope this helped you guys priced out how much it's gonna be for your build. Rather it be you build the bottom block by itself, or you build the full block, or just the heads, whatever the case may be. Next video I plan on tackling is spark plugs, and then after the spark plugs, we'll talk about some 3.8 stuff, because I know I have a lot of 3.8 guys that are also watching this stuff. That's pretty much gonna be it for this video today, guys. We got this build sheet out of the way now. If you guys have any more questions, leave a comment down below, or hit me up on Instagram or Facebook, whichever, don't matter. Leave a like. Please subscribe and share this video to any of your 2.0 friends that are looking to build their engine. We'll see you back hopefully next week with some 3.8 content or the spark plug video, whichever one comes first. But yeah, till next time, guys. Laters.